Amen. We've started several weeks ago, and I think we've got quite a few weeks to go yet. We're having a conversation, I guess you'd say, as well as a biblical study that I've titled Life, Liberty, and the Pursuit of Happiness, a practical guide to life, relationships, and love. We're kind of approaching things in it's life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, but I've kind of rearranged things a little bit. We're looking at the pursuit of happiness as it relates to finding love. And most people fall into that category that they seek a life partner. They're looking for someone they could literally invest their life in, spend their life with. And we're going to be looking at the liberty aspect at the end. And you'll understand why. Because there is the concept in Christian theology of New Testament Christ-given liberty. We are not bound by the law. We walk in liberty. But we need to understand the constraints of that liberty. We need to understand how that liberty is defined. But I've got it set up so we'll be looking at that last, okay? And you'll see why, because it kind of flows better that way. Now, we have been looking the last couple of weeks. We've started looking at what I call the road to matrimony. And that is, there is a process, there is a logical procession, as it were, that if we as human beings would learn, as I've said in previous weeks, to keep our head in the game and go through the process, let the process play out, we would be so much better off for it. I see young people and people online, they love to post, oh, I wish I had a relationship. I wish I had someone to love, because then I'd have affection and I'd have this and I'd have that. And I love to read what people think comes with a relationship.
Right.
They never one time say, then I'd have affection, then I'd have love, then I'd have fights, then I'd have quarrels, then we'd have misunderstanding, then we'd have days where we look at each other and hate each other's guts, and then we'd make up, No, we never go there. All the ideas surrounding the notion of a relationship are these wonderful fairy tale pie-in-the-sky ideas of everything's going to be wonderful, everything's going to be grand, all these benefits that come with a relationship. Yes, there's no doubt benefits come with a good, solid relationship. Now, did you hear what I said?
Good, solid.
There you go, girl. Those benefits do not come simply with a relationship. I've been in relationships that were pretty lousy, and I did not get those benefits. I did not get the affection. I did not get the support. I did not get the encouragement, right? Have anybody else in this room ever been there? If you folks online could see, every hand in the building went up. So, just having a relationship does not guarantee you all those positive benefits. This is why it is so important that we learn to go through the process. I've had a number of transgendered people in our church over the years. I'm going to make some people mad. I know this only because you can't say anything anymore without somebody getting mad at you. I know I'm going to make somebody mad at me, but this is how I feel. So you can be mad at me, but this is my opinion. This is how I feel. When I have people in the church who are feel as though they are transgendered, we are fully supportive of them. We're 100%. We've had people come in identifying one way, and then all of a sudden they spring it on us, so to speak. Oh, I'm TG, And so I'm going to go by this name. And we say, okie dokie. And every one of us, haven't we, Tommy, try to adjust ourselves so we're calling them by the right name, using the right pronouns. Listen, if you want to be called a puppy dog and you want me to call you Fido, I'll do it. You know, whatever you want works with me. I respect what people feel. I respect their experience and where they're at. I don't know why in the world that should be such a hard thing for people to do. You know, in the world we live in, we got all kinds of people who are transphobic, you know, and, oh, well, you know, this person, well, they were born this, and they wanted to. You know what? It doesn't kill me to do it. It doesn't kill me to support them. It doesn't kill me to call them by whatever pronouns they identify with and they're comfortable with. It doesn't kill me to call them by whatever name they want to be called. You know what I'm saying? What is the big deal about this? I don't have a problem with it. We support transgender people in this church. However, I have known many transgendered people. When I lived in New York City, if you watch Tu Wong Fu, Thanks for Everything, Julie Newmar, and you know the opening scene when they're having that big drag show and they have all the, I know almost every one of those performers, those drag performers. I dated people that performed. I dated people who were TG. I have been exposed probably more than a lot of people to the transgendered community and the transgendered experience. I have heard so many stories. I've heard so many complaints and, you know, that the things that people go through. I know people who are extremely well balanced and well, part of it is because they have the support and the love of their families, and that makes a world of difference. But I also know people who have all kinds of issues and all kinds of troubles, and you know. So when someone comes to me and they identify as transgendered, one of the first things I will say to them is, go through the process. I know you want to jump from this to this. I know you want to go from here to there in a minute. You want to do it instantaneously. But trust me, I know hundreds of people who have been down this road, and everyone I know who is well adjusted and who has really settled into life and is doing well, every one of them have said to me, you have to trust the process. You have to go through the process. You cannot be, now some of y'all may not understand how it works for a lot of people, but you cannot be in the back room of a nightclub as a drag performer taking shots that some other performer has given you, so that you'll develop female body expressions. And you know, you can't do that, Lisa. That is not healthy. It is dangerous. You don't do that. And we had one individual in our church who was female to male, and I tried to explain to this individual, I said, listen, please, go through the process. They recommend that you go through counseling. Go through that counseling. They recommend that any medications you take to alter your body, that those be administered by a physician. Do that. Well, but it costs money. Well, but you know, it takes time. Well, I understand that. But you're not going to run down the road and find somebody with a steak knife to give you a sex change operation either, are you? No, you're not going to let somebody hack on you. You know, you're going to look for somebody who knows what they're doing, and you're going to pay whatever needs to be paid, and you'll find a way to pay for it. Well, listen, if you're going to come out of that experience of transition healthy and well, you need to go through the process. I know it can be a pain in the neck. I've had cataracts in my eyes, And Lisa, before I could get them taken out, I had to go through a process. I was nearly, blind in my one eye, and I go to the doctor and they say, well, but it's not ready to be operated on yet. Well, it was in my mind, but it wasn't to Parkland Hospital. So, Martin, I had to go for a few months, and I had to suffer with that bloody eye, just driving me crazy. Couldn't see nothing, I had to suffer with it until the surgeon finally said, okay, now it's ready, now we can do it, Well, if they do it too soon, you can have a recurrence. Right. You can have things come back on you. So they have to wait for it to kind of ripen. You've heard of that term with certain conditions, they can't lance a boil, or they can't do certain things until it quote unquote ripens, till it's ready, because if you do it too soon, it's going to just reappear and you're going to have to go through the whole process all over again. So you learn in life that even though it is frustrating at times, you are best served to go through the process. There is a reason for the process, and there are benefits to the process. If you go for any surgery, you're going to have to go through a process. They're going to have you go, and you're going to have to do certain tests, and you're going to have to do certain MRI and certain things in order to even get you ready for the surgery. Well, I don't want to go through all that. I just want them to do the surgery. Well, they can't do the surgery effectively if you don't do the x-rays, if you don't do the MRI. You've got to go through the process. Same thing is true for a person that is transitioning. You need to go through the process. Trust me, it'll help you. Well, I said all that to say this. When it comes to finding a relationship that is going to genuinely offer you the benefits that you seek, you need to go through the process. The process that I've been speaking of begins, of course, with attraction. Nobody looks at somebody and says, boy, that's the ugliest pile of worms I've ever laid eyes on. Let me go introduce myself. I think I want to date him or her or it. Nobody does that. No, we're initially drawn to people. Now, I'm going to tell you, there are a lot of people, they mess up their whole seeking love experience right in this step right here, number one. How in the world do you do that? How do you do that? Because, honey, if the only thing that attracts you to somebody is a pretty face and a muscular body and nice clothes and a fancy car, you've done already set yourself up for a fall. Do you know why most people, especially in the LGBT community, do you know why most people tend to go through a tumultuous time with relationships early in their lives while they're relatively young? And if you really look around, you'll find most LGBT people that I know don't really start to get serious about love and relationships until they hit about 30. Have you ever noticed that? Once you hit 30, all of a sudden everything changes. You know why? It's simple. It's as easy as nature itself. We mature. When you hit a certain age, you begin to look at life differently. You begin to look at things differently. I remember when I first came out in '89, bless God, somebody was 35. Here I was like 24, 23, whatever it was. Somebody 35, my God, they might as well have been Moses. That was just too old for me, man. I mean, oh, no, I wouldn't even. Oh, that's ugly, that age. Oh, that's horrible, somebody that age. Oh, I practically would vomit, my stomach being, and old man come up to you, Martin. 34 years old, right? Old man. Because after all, you're not but in your 20s. Please. You know what's funny? You get to be 30, all of a sudden you look at that 34-year-old and you're not seeing them the same way.
Yeah.
All of a sudden you're seeing them entirely different. What made you gag when you were a younger person, all of a sudden you find attractive. What's changed? You've grown. A lot of you young people who may be watching me and hearing this teaching, I've got news for you, kiddo. You're not going to like what the pastor's about to say. You're probably going to go through a lot of frog kissing for the next several years. And a lot of that, listen carefully, because you know, Pastor Charles, I don't mince words. A lot of that is your fault. A lot of that is your fault. Because when you start on the road to matrimony, you start at attraction. What attracts you to another person? Their looks, their money, their job, the clothes they wear. If you're younger, chances are all of the above. But as you get older and as you mature, you've been through that phase where you were attracted to all that stuff, and you realize that all that glitters is not gold. Mm-hmm. And as you grow older, all of a sudden, Bobby, you begin to value other things. You value honesty. Yeah. You value communicativeness. Someone who actually can talk. I told Tommy when I met him, and everybody I've ever dated, I pretty much have done this with, because those of you in this room know me, and you know I'm not telling a fib. I'll tell you what I got to say if I got to say it. And I'll tell people that I'm dating and everything. Listen, if I have a problem with something between you and I'm going to look you right square in the eye, and I'm looking at Tommy right now as I say this, and I'm going to say it. You may not like it. It may be hard for me to say. But if I don't say it, we cannot address it. If we don't address it, then it goes unaddressed, and eventually it is going to fester, and it is going to turn into a problem that very well may become the death of our relationship. So it's better that I deal with my discomfort in speaking about it. It is better that you deal with your discomfort in hearing about it so that we can talk about it. I'm a very communicative person. If I have an issue, and believe me, Tommy and I, early in our relationship, we had some issues, and we had some tough conversations about things. And it was not an easy process. But I can tell you that when I met Tommy, even though I think he's sexy as all get out, that is not all I saw. I saw qualities in him that I was very attracted to, that I really liked and I really appreciated. And there were things about the way he carried himself, there were things about the way he thought, there were things about his background. Say, things about his background? Yeah. When you're dating people, let me fill you in on a little secret. Let me fill you all in on a little secret. You young people that are watching, listen to me. When you're dating, if you play your cards right and you go through the process the pastor's trying to help you understand today, one of the things you should be very thoughtful about is, what is this person's background? What kind of family do they come from? I want to tell you a little secret. If that person has a mom and dad who've been married for 40 years or 30 years or 50 years, or like Martin, 412 years, then chances are they're going to be a better candidate for a long-term relationship than somebody whose mother was divorced 5 times by the time he was 12. or by the time she was 7. Do you follow what I'm saying? Now, somebody is going to get upset with me. Well, Pastor, that ain't right, because my mother was divorced so many times and blah, blah. And, and I'm relationship oriented, and I'm all about relationship and commitment. You may very well be, but I got news for you. Take it from the preacher that you're going to come to for counseling. Okay, this is the pastor that you're going to come with your partner and you're going to want to counsel. You're going to have a lot of baggage because the role models that you've had were not good. And you're going to have to work through a lot of bad stuff. I'll give you an example from my own life. And I don't say this, I love my mother, okay? I don't say this to embarrass her by any means. But again, this is just part of me being candid in an effort to help people. I want to help you. My parents argued and fought constantly. My father was verbally and emotionally and psychologically abusive beyond words, folks. I'm not kidding, beyond words. And my household was filled with almost constant turmoil and trouble. Can I tell you a little secret? Now, I grew up in church. I didn't have teaching like I'm offering right now. I wished I had it. I wound up in relationship after relationship after relationship where all we did was argue and fight with each other. Well, of course we did. Because to me, Lisa, that was normal. To me, that's what people who love each other do. I didn't think anything about it. Do you follow what I'm saying? It's just like a child who grows up and mom is abused. How often that young woman will turn around and get married and she'll marry a guy just like her dad, and he'll turn around and abuse her just like her father abused her mother. Am I telling the truth? Folks, I'm telling you, this is just real life. It's the real world. So you wind up bringing your past into your present, and that present informs your future. So when you are attracted to people, one of the things that you learn as you grow and mature is, what background does this person come from? What kind of... Now, Tommy's parents belong to, and I don't say this gleefully, they belong to a cult. It's a cult. And I love them to death. I think they're the sweetest people in the world. I really do. They're precious. They've been married for years. Even though his parents grew up in a cult, in conversations with Tommy on first meeting him, it was easy for me to see that he had the kind of values that I too embrace. Now, he might have gotten them partly from growing up in a cult. That's okay. Doesn't matter where he got them so long as he got them. You follow what I'm saying? We've got people out there, especially young people, have all kinds of discussions with somebody you're dating, and you're so busy jumping into bed because they're pretty that you don't take time to stop and listen to 2 words they put together. I'm going to tell you, and I told Tommy this when I first met him, I listen to everything. I tend to be talkative by nature. I admit that. It's actually a trait I don't like in myself, but it is. It's a trait I don't care for in myself. That's one reason why I try real hard sometimes to just clamp my mouth shut and try to sit there and listen. There's a psychology behind why I do that, but I don't want to get into that right now. But I'm going to tell you, I told Tommy when I first met him, I said, I listen to every word you say. You pull a Trump and you tell me one thing today and something else tomorrow. You tell me 2 facts that don't mesh and don't come together and don't support what you're trying to tell me. I'm going to call you out on it because I listen to every word you say. Tommy used to tell me, Oh, I had this car for 7 years, and I had this car for 6 years, and I had this car for 5 years, and this car I had for 3 years till I crashed it into a tree, and then I had that. And I'd sit there and I'd say, really? And you're how old again? And you've been driving since you were how old? 1, apparently? Now, he was not being deceitful. It wasn't like he was lying, you know. But like any of us, you know, a lot of times in our memory, you know, if you ask me, well, how long did you have this car? I don't really remember. I might say, well, I think I had about 2 years. Well, in reality, I might have had it 6 months. You know, I mean, that's just how the nature of memory. But the idea is, I listen to every word somebody tells me. I'll tell you a little secret. That's smart. The Bible says, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaketh. Listen to what people tell you, folks. You know, Maya Angelou made this statement, when somebody shows you who they are, believe them.
Yeah.
When somebody says something, you need to be paying attention. Don't just let it slide over your head. Pay attention. Because you can learn a lot about the deep part of a person by just listening. Just listen. Pay attention to what they're saying. If I'm dating somebody and they talk about how their ex and they used to get into spats and they'd get into fist fights and all that, I'm going to tell you a little secret. That dating experience is over. I'm done. I don't care if I'm looking at Prince Charming and I mean gorgeous out of your mind. You've just told me something.
Yep.
You've just shown me a part of yourself that does not fit into my world. You also need to know, Martin, what it is that you're willing to have in your life. I'm talking about attraction, all right? We're starting at attraction. I'm kind of backpedaling because I'm not sure I covered this as well as I should have in our earlier segments. Well, if I could get this. Oh, that's why. I'm using the wrong mouse. We're talking about the attraction aspect of things, okay? Oh, my goodness. I'm trying to get this screen to move, and it won't move. For instance, well, now I've gone all the way to introduction. Oh, well. Lord knows I try. That's all I can say. But we're talking about the attraction. What are you willing to have in your life? This has to do with attraction. If I meet somebody and they drink themselves under the table while I'm sitting there talking to them, I am no longer attracted to them. Why? Because, Martin, drunkenness is something that I have no room for.
Yeah.
Oh, I've been down that road. Oh, well, I got drunk and I slept with this person, but it was because I was drunk.
No.
And by the way, that was one of my first girlfriends that said that. So that ain't a LGBT problem.
Right.
No, I don't have room for drunkenness. Therefore, drunkenness is going to end my attraction. Are you following me? Is this all right tonight? Is this okay? Drunkenness is going to end my attraction. If they light up a doobie, or if they start rolling a blunt, yeah, I know the words. Never done it in my life. Never have touched that stuff in my life. Or if they start snorting anything that looks even remotely similar to baking soda, I'm out the door. End of story. I have no time or interest for that garbage in my life. If you look past stuff that you're really not interested in and you really don't want in your life, if you look past those things because they're so cute or they're so hot or they're so this or they're so that, my friend, you are playing the fool. You're playing the fool. I want to tell you a little secret. You know, there's an old saying, there's a lot of fish in the sea. And there are. There are. You can say thank you no to 1,000,000. And I guarantee you that 1,000,001 is going to come along at some point. Trust me, it happens. Okay? Don't ever think that you have to accept just whatever comes at you. Because after all, if I don't, I may not get another opportunity at love. I may not get another opportunity at a relationship. No, 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 no. I'm 52. I'll be 53 in September. Sweetie, I have learned by experience. Listen, this bus may pass, but there's another one coming a little while later. Another bus will come. All the time you waste investing in someone who is not good for you, who is not right for you, who is not a match for you, is taking away from the opportunities for you to find the right one. I've spent time in some really lousy relationships. And while I was in those really lousy relationships, I probably walked past a dozen people who would have been a wonderful match for me, who I might have had a wonderful, connection to. But I was invested in this loser, so I didn't see the winners. Do you follow what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Now, a lot of what I'm talking about, folks, I had to learn. This is not stuff I just, jumped out of the box and understood right off the start. No, it took me a while to learn these things. But attraction is the beginning. We're attracted to somebody. But what attracts you? Do you lose your attraction when you see something that you do not have room for in your life? If you do, you're smart. If your attraction wanes when you see something that you do not have room for in your life, you're smart. If you're 20 years old and you see somebody doing something that you're just not about to go for, you're smart if you pass on that, okay? So you can save yourself a lot of heartache by simply approaching the first step in a smart way, attraction. Weed out what you're not going to deal with, what you're not going to put up with, what you're not interested in, right off the starting line. That way, you hadn't even progressed and gone on with anything at that point. You can just say, I had somebody one time, and then I'm going to move to the next, but I had somebody one time at a club. And I know there's people watching from the mainstream church world, and their hair just going to start falling out, and their teeth are going to rattle, because after all, we're not supposed to say these things. Well, Martin, I had somebody come up to me one night at a club and said, gorgeous person. I mean, gorgeous. Like, honest, I'm not kidding, like a model. Gorgeous. And this person came to me, Lisa, and said, I want you to take me home and boppity bop, beepity beep beep beep, boppity bop bop bop. And I looked at them, and immediately I felt nothing but disdain. That no more turned me on than nothing. Because I'm looking for something a whole lot more than a roll in the hay. I'm looking for something a whole lot more than a one-night stand. And that opening line couldn't have been a worse opening line. Right. It didn't work with me. Now, it might have worked with a lot of people, Martin, sure, but that person was barking up the wrong tree with me. That line turned me off so bad, I said, no, thank you, and just turned around and walked away. Had no interest in it, okay? So attraction, if you keep your head in the game and you start at the level of attraction and you approach that from the right perspective, you're going to save yourself a lot of heartache, a lot of trouble. Now, following attraction, and we'll get through this one real quick, is introduction. You see somebody you're attracted to for whatever reasons, then you're going to make yourself available to them. You're going to make yourself known to them. You're going to let them know your interest or what have you, okay? So I'm going to tell you, I'm going to fill you in on a little secret. Some of you young folks, nobody will ever tell you this, but Pastor Charles is going to tell you something. Never be afraid to introduce yourself to anyone.
Thank you very much.
Oh, but she is so beautiful, or he is so beautiful. He's way out of my league. You know, he'd never be interested in me. She'd never be interested in me. You don't know that. You don't know that. I remember when I was young, my mother actually used to tell me some stuff that as I grew older, I realized there was a lot of wisdom in what she told me. Yes, Mother, I said that. Get the smelling salts. I'm sure she's passed out on the floor in Florida. My son's giving me credit for passing wisdom. But my mother used to tell me, she said, girls are interested in guys that have confidence. You know, girls are interested in fellas that carry themselves well. You know, it's not all about your looks. It's not all about, you know, the externals. Well, of course, I thought she was full of baloney because, after all the girls at my school, you know, they were all attracted to the football players and the handsome dudes and, you know. But as I got older and when I came out, holy mackerel, do you know what I found out? I found out, Lisa, I could walk up to the hottest person in the room. I mean, just smoking hot. And talk to them. And I found confidence when I came out. I really did. You know why? Because I felt so natural. You know, I felt more like I was in my real right element. And so all of a sudden I had confidence that in terms of trying to deal with girls, I never had. I never had that kind of confidence because I always felt like, you know, I was trying to make two pieces of puzzle fit that didn't fit. But when I came out, all of a sudden, I found this confidence. And I'd go up to people, and do you know what? You'd be shocked at some of the people I've dated. You'd be shocked at some of the people who found me very attractive. People that liked me a lot, people that I wound up dating, and you know, you'd be shocked. Some of the most beautiful people in the world, folks, are not convinced that they're so beautiful. Some of the sweetest people in the world are not convinced that they're so sweet. Some of the kindest people in the world don't see that kindness in themselves. You need to understand that if you're attracted to someone, if you're interested in someone, don't you ever be afraid to go talk to them. Well, but what if I get rejected? So what? What if you do? What have you lost? Somebody come take your house? Does somebody come steal your car because, oh, that person didn't find you attractive. Give me the keys to your car. You'll lose your car. No. You've lost nothing. You've lost nothing. But if you don't take the chance, you never know what you could have gained.
That's right.
Look around you. Some of the ugliest old heifers on the planet have some of the most gorgeous spouses you've ever seen. Look at me, portly old chubby me, and look at my sweetness over there. I'm sure people look at us and say, what a lousy couple. He could do so much better. Well, he could, but do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
This, you know, I'm about the most practical teacher that you've ever heard. I'm telling you, folks, don't ever be afraid. When you're at the introduction level, you've got nothing to lose. You've got nothing to lose. Oh, but I might get hurt because I'll be rejected. Honey, if you get hurt because you're rejected, you need to work on that. You need to work on that. Rejection's part of life. You're going to go for job interviews and they're going to say, thank you, if we're interested, we'll call you, and they're never going to call you. If you're an actor, you're going to go on, auditions, and they're going to say, we'll call you, and honey, you ain't never going to get a call. Okay? Rejection is part of life. It happens at every conceivable level. You experience rejection. Learn to simply let it roll off your back like water off a duck's back. It's just part of the process. It's part of the process. You're never going to know what could be unless you introduce yourself, unless you go ahead and step out and make that effort, okay? Does that sound like good practical advice?
Uh-huh.
Then we move into the area of dating, which we've talked about before, and I know I'm going over all this stuff. Dating is so important, folks. I've talked about this. It is so important. Spend time with people. Do not be in a hurry to jump in the sack. Why, you're an LGBT affirming pastor. Why, you're not supposed to say that because whatever goes, whatever feels good. Listen, whatever feels good will lead you down the wrong path every time. You go into Walmart and see a 800-pound woman riding around on one of them little electric carts, Lisa. What felt good to her was them ice creams and pies and cakes and she just went with whatever felt good. Well, what felt good hasn't treated her well. It is not always wise to just follow every instinct and every desire. No, because when you open yourself up physically, you open yourself up emotionally. When you open yourself up emotionally, you are going to get hurt. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I don't care what anybody says. I know for a fact that from here down is very much connected from here up. What goes on down here has a lot to do with what goes on up here. I cannot escape that. I can't escape that. That's one reason why when you're with somebody you love and somebody you care about and somebody you are committed to, the experience from here down, if I may say it that way, is better and it is enhanced because of what you feel up here and in here. And that's a fact, folks. I mean, am I telling the truth? You open yourself up to somebody and they leave the next morning or they leave that night and you never see them again, and then a couple weeks later you see them in the club with somebody else or you see them in the restaurant with somebody else, and you start feeling, well, what's wrong with me? Why didn't they call me? Why haven't they ever gotten back in touch with me? After a while, it gets hurtful. You let that happen to you several times and see if you don't start feeling real bad about yourself. You start feeling like damaged goods. You start feeling like the spoiled apple in the bushel. It's like, well, they keep picking all the other apples. Why? What was wrong with me? Well, you know what? You were in such a hurry, you're going to get what you pay for. There are a lot of old sayings I could quote. Nobody buys the cow if they can get the milk for free. That's the truth. That's the truth. Don't be in a hurry. Don't be in a hurry. Dating is that process we go through whereby we get to know somebody. I'm going to tell you, a lot of those frogs that you've been kissing, if you dated them, you'd have never kissed them. You'd have never bitten into that apple because you know what? No, they were looking for a quick thing, and if you made them for 1 second after work, they would disappear and you'd never see them again, and you'd save yourself, giving yourself away and being rejected and feeling terrible emotionally. You'd have saved yourself all that if all you had done was say, hey, I want to get to know you. I want to know who you are. I want to know a little bit about you. Nothing wrong with that. Dating is something that ought to be non-committal. Trust the process. Dating ought to be something that You can date, spend time with whomever you wish, whenever you wish, wherever you wish, however you wish, and it should be non-committal. I'll tell you why. Because there's nothing wrong with comparison. I've dated people, and then I've had somebody else say to me, oh, I'd like to take you to lunch, or I'll be, oh, okay, that'd be nice, and I'll go with them and all that. And in the process of talking to them, Lisa, and whatever, I'm sitting there saying to myself, boy, I'll tell you, this other person that I have seen is a whole lot better than this fool sitting in front of me, I'm hearing junk coming out of this one that just is such a, do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Comparison is not a bad thing. Insecurity makes you believe that, oh, but if he compares me to anybody, that he's going to choose the other person. Well, that could happen, but not necessarily. Not necessarily. Them other people might make him appreciate you even the more. So there's nothing wrong with comparison. Dating should be non-committal. I'm telling you, if there's anything drives me crazy, it's when people meet today, marry tomorrow. It's like, oh, we've been going out for 3 days, now we're a couple. Now I've changed my status on Facebook. It's like, what do you know about that person in 3 days? I know what I feel. And a week later, you're cussing that guy up one side, down the other, what a miserable SOB, he ain't nothing but a dog. And if you're still wanting to be friends with him, you don't want to be no friend of mine. Y'all know I'm telling the truth, Lisa.
What is fun is looking at this list, hearing the things you're saying, and looking at the people I have been with. And why.
Right.
For how long?
Right.
How long?
Yeah.
And it's absolutely exactly right.
It is. It really is.
Absolutely.
It is. Because from the dating process, you move into the courtship process. What is the courtship process? The courtship process is when you more and more lose interest in even spending time with anybody else, and you really begin to hone in on that one. Okay? But if you're smart, it'll kind of happen naturally. It'll just be, well, I've been dating, but as time goes on, you're saying, you know what? Somebody says, would you like to go to lunch? No, I don't think so. I think I'd rather go spend time with this person. Right, Martin? No, I think, and all of a sudden you find yourself honing in. Courtship is, that is where the two pigeons are doing their little dance, to attract one another and get each, because now they're focused on one another. That's what courtship is. Dating is non-committal. Courtship is non-committal, but it is focused. Okay? So you don't have to move in yet with them. You don't have to move in with her yet. But now you're courting. Now you are kind of putting all your energy into that one person. That's courtship, okay? Courtship, ultimately, if you're somebody who is seeking a real life commitment relationship, courtship eventually should lead to engagement. That's where you make it formal. That's where you make it solid. You make a commitment to one another. Engagement is where the commitment should come in, not 1 minute before. You know how many heartaches, how many nights bawling into my pillow I could have saved myself if I'd have followed my own advice. But I didn't know it yet. I didn't know. So don't anybody say, see, preacher, you don't even follow your own advice. No, I hadn't really put all this together for myself yet. But do you know if somebody had taught me this when I was young?
Yes.
Do you know how much grief I could have been spared?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I'm telling you folks, I wish somebody had told me.
Yes.
I wish somebody had told me. No, I'd meet somebody, I'd be attracted to them, and I'd express my interest, and they'd kind of come back with, yeah, you know, you're a cutie too, and some of them I would date for a while, and it would just be tumultuous, it would just be a nightmare, because the first minute we liked each other, I was focused entirely on that one person, never looked at another person, I was just focused entirely and put all my energy, and I was making a commitment to somebody I didn't even know.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't buy a car that you hadn't driven. You're not going to, you know, see an ad on, well, I mean, there are some people who might be goofy enough to do this, but you're not going to see an ad on Craigslist and call the guy on the phone and say, I'll buy it! I'll take it! Here's my information, you know, here's my credit card, put it on your square, I'll take it. No, you're going to make an appointment to go look at it. You're going to take the time to take it out for a drive. You're going to look under the hood long before you make a commitment to buy it. Am I telling the truth? Yet we have people who are so careless when it comes to one of the most important things in the world, your mental health, your spiritual health, your emotional health. I'm going to tell you now, the Bible tells us, do not be unequally yoked with unbelievers. If you're somebody who's trying to live for God and live for the Lord and be a Christian, you'd better be careful about who you hook your wagon to when it comes to relationships. Because that person is either going to, now there are some people who'll kind of be neutral. They're not going to add to nor take away from. But then you have others who are either going to add to your walk with God, and then you have some who are going to take away from it. We had a guy in our church right here. He was with us for several years. And I warned him. I said, I'm going to tell you, the devil knows your price. Satan knows your price. I said, and for you, if the right person come along, you could be dragged out of church so fast that your head would spin. You know what happened? Exactly what I said. This guy come along, next thing you know, poof, he was out of church, poof, he's being arrested. He's going through all kinds of ridiculous things. That person he got with dragged him through the mud. Next thing you know, Lisa, he was, you wouldn't believe the stuff this poor guy went through. All because he hitched his wagon to this individual who, if he'd have had more confidence in himself, he should have passed on right at the attraction level. Because it was not hard to see that there was a lot there that if that person had been talking to me, I would not have been attracted for 1 second. Okay? And if this person in our church had been keeping their head in the game and following the process, then at the attraction level, he should have been able to say, oh, no. This ain't nothing I want in my life. But no, insecurity is one of our biggest enemies, folks. I'm going to tell you, the devil loves to see you heartbroken. The enemy of your soul loves to see you heartbroken. He loves to see you depressed. He loves to see you worried. He loves to see you anxious. He loves to see you hurting. And he will fill your mind with every false thought. Oh, but if you don't make it work with Ted, there'll never be anyone else. Baloney. 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 No. Don't believe that for a minute. How many women are in relationships with an abusive man, and their insecurity keeps them in that situation, and that man beats them and beats on them and beats on them and mistreats them and abuses them year after year after year after year, and they're in that situation primarily because of insecurity. I tell you, don't let insecurity get the best of you. Don't let the enemy lie to you. Okay? If the situation you're in is not a good situation, you deserve better. and better can come to you. But it cannot come to you until you say, thank you very much, but I'll pass on what I have. Makes me think, I'm almost done tonight, makes me think of the old TV show we used to watch, Martin, when we were a lot younger. Monty, what's his name? And the...
Let's Make a Deal.
Let's Make a Deal. Well, you won, a truckload of duck food. Now you can either keep this truckload of duck food or you can trade it in for what's behind curtain number 1. Well, I'm uncertain because I can't see what's behind curtain number 1. Honey, it got to be better than a truckload of duck food. Okay? I mean, if it's a year's supply of rice-a-roni, it's better than a truckload of duck food. I don't have no ducks. Well, but I'd rather have one to know than pass on that for the uncertain. Why? 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 That's the funny thing about uncertainty. I remember studying about Socrates and Plato, years ago in college, doing a course on ethics and what have you. And I believe it was Plato who said, they were threatening him with death. The people in his community didn't want him teaching the young men and the young people in the community his philosophies, And they were threatening with death. And Plato looked at him and said, why in the world would you think that's some big threat? Why would you think death is some kind of a big... He said, how do I know that after death there isn't something grand and glorious and wonderful waiting for me that I can't even imagine? He said, you think that because it's uncertain that it automatically is bad. Are you following me, folks?
Yeah.
We assume because on the other curtain we're not sure what's behind you. Well, but it's probably bad. Well, excuse me, but what you got ain't good. Hello? Mm-hmm. If what you got ain't good, then the uncertainty of what's behind curtain number 1, sweetie, go for the curtain.
Yeah.
Go for the curtain. Okay? It took me going through one relationship with somebody who treated me like absolute garbage. We were together 2 years. In 2 years, those 2 years that I had birthdays, both years, never got so much as a card. Christmas, same thing. Valentine's Day, same thing. Now, Tommy can tell you, I'm all about trying to do something nice for these days. I try to do something nice for Christmas. I try to do something nice for birthday. I did a big party for him at one of the places we used to go to back then. He loved karaoke, and we used to go to karaoke one night a week. And so when his birthday came along, I invited all his friends, and I rented out the back room at the bar, and we had a big shindig. And I mean, there were like 30 or 40 people there, and it was wonderful. I mean, and what did I get for my birthday? Not even so much as a card. Nothing. Nothing. And he didn't even apologize. He didn't think nothing of it. It's like, oh, well, And Lisa, if I were paying attention, I would have realized, hey, stupid, this person's telling you they really don't care. Who is it? Steve Harvey that says he's really not that into you? He's really not that into you. It was obvious. His behavior was telling me that. Why should I have been afraid of what was behind curtain number 2? Why should I have been afraid of getting out of that situation, even if I had to live by myself and be by myself for a while? I'm going to tell you a little secret, kids. I'd rather be happy alone than miserable with somebody. Because I've been miserable with somebody. If you think having a body in your bed is going to make you happy, you have no clue how life works. You can have a bed full of folk and still feel alone. Please don't run out and do that. I am not advocating that. I am not advocating that. But do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You can have somebody in your bed, you can have somebody in your house, you can have somebody in your room, you can have somebody in your life and still be miserably alone. Still feel lonely, still feel depressed, still feel like that everything you go through in your life, you're going through by yourself. Because that person ain't even trying to step up and be for you, and do for you. Been there. I've been there. Anybody else been there? Is that not the most miserable, stinking mess you can be in? Being with somebody and still feeling so lonely and so lousy and depressed? It's a terrible way to live. So trust the process. Trust the process. Don't leap into commitment. If you can find somebody who believes in the process as much as you do, then honey, you have found gold. You have found gold. That's one thing I can say about Tommy and I. I don't know if he was as happy with the process as I was. I wasn't thrilled with it. It took us a while to progress along the stairways of this, but at least he was willing to go along the stairway. He was okay with that. And we see, and you know what, it worked out beautifully for us because there were issues that early in our relationship that we were able to work through, and I mean, we had a lot of tough conversations. We had a couple of arguments, and but we were able to work through some things, Martin, long before we went out and bought a house. Long before. And we had those neutral corners to go to. He had his apartment, I had my apartment. We were able to go off and be by ourselves, and then we'd come back together. Sometimes he'd say, I'm sorry. And 98% of the time I'd say, I'm sorry. I'm teasing. But we'd come back together after a while. And honestly, we had time to get away from the heat of the moment and think about things. And then we'd come back. And there were things that I realized about myself that I wound up saying to him. And I remember it as vividly as if it happened yesterday. I remember he and I at my apartment in Garland over there on Oates Road. And I remember saying to him at one point, I came to realize that I can't be happy unless I'm unhappy. Because that's what I grew up with, Lisa.
Yeah.
That's what I grew up with. That's what I grew up around. Everybody was miserable, but that's what made them happy. I've got aunts that are the same way. I mean, they're miserable every minute that they're married. They're miserable, but they're happy being miserable. They wouldn't know how to be happy. And I finally came to realize one day that I was wired in such a way that I thought to be happy I had to be miserable. Do you follow what I'm saying? Do you remember that discussion? You see, but I'd have never come to that realization if we'd have been face to face the entire time, and I didn't have that time for him to go his way, me to go my way. And it was during that quiet time, I'm not talking about us being separated as far as the relationship. I mean just simply physically, having our own spaces. And when we came back together, boom, we were able to work through it. And I made a commitment to him. And I said, okay, you know what? I realized this is insane. This is crazy. I need to work on this. And I made a commitment to work on it. And I think I've done pretty well. So you see, trusting the process, folks, by the time you get to the last step, marriage, you're going to have all the potential in your relationship for the best of the best. You will have all the potential to experience all the benefits and all the positive things that you want to get out of a relationship. It's not going to make that relationship any easier. Relationships, I'm telling you, they take some work to maintain. It's not going to make it easier, but you will experience the benefits that you're seeking if you'll trust the process. Amen? All right, next week we're going to move on from here. Would you stand with me this evening?